Hello, friends.
What's up, guys and
So
girls? I'm sorry.
today is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. For those of you watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see I have my Star Wars shirt on. When I showed my husband the Star Wars shirt, he said, "Why is there a Christmas ornament on it?" I said, My daughter's boyfriend said, "That's not a Christmas ornament." Anyway, we try to explain. He's not a Star Wars fan. It's okay. We love him anyway. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine.
We're not going to talk about this much, but I would like some help here. When you look at that shirt and you don't watch Star Wars, that looks like a Christmas ornament. I'm sorry. It does.
It's fine.
It's okay.
all
I
fine.
don't watch Star Wars. I'm sorry.
fine. We're
Forgive
fine.
me. I watch
It's okay.
Jaws. I mean, that's what I watch.
The force is not strong with that one. I'm sorry.
No,
So,
it's not.
All right. So today we're going to talk about finding purpose in your season. Fun times. So before we start talking about our seasons, let's talk about the seasons. So some of you know, some of you don't. I teach middle school. So I went to one of my very good friends that teaches science and asked her to give me some insight on the seasons and the purposes behind the seasons. And so we started with spring, and obviously people know spring brings new growth. For my Oklahomies and some Texans, I guess, you also know that spring brings some bad weather. So with the bad weather, we were talking specifically about lightning. And lightning is dangerous. For some people, it's scary. I think it's cool. Storms have never bothered me, but I know some people get super freaked out about it. I think that's probably how your parents dealt with storms when you were a kid, but that's just, we're not talking about that. But anyway, lightning comes, but what some people may not know is when lightning strikes, it puts nitrates into the atmosphere, and when nitrates combine in the rain and rain down, it is important for plant growth. So there's that. And then summer, there are organisms in the summer that actually thrive in the heat. And things are busy in the summer. Humans, we're outside. You're getting vitamin D from the sun. And fun fact, there's less germs going around in the summertime with the heat. Animals are out of hibernation. There's more relationships happening with all the food web things. So lots of purpose in the summer. Fall is for preparation. I learned something today about prepping in the fall. So animals are getting ready for hibernation and they're storing up food. But did you know that trees prepare for hibernation?
I didn't know that.
You didn't
I'm
know
learning
that?
so
Yeah.
much.
So,
I feel like I'm in science class right now.
We
as we speak.
enjoy the leaves turning and then eventually falling off. The trees are shedding their leaves so that they can store up their nutrients, not have to use them for the leaves and all of those things, so that they can survive through the winter.
So it sounds like to me, I'm not trying to burst your bubble, it sounds like to me that when God made the seasons, it was all for a purpose.
It's all
everything.
for a purpose. Everything is for a purpose.
Whether you like it or not.
Yes.
Whether you like rain, you don't like rain. You like winter, you don't. It's all for a purpose.
It's all
serves
for a reason.
For sure, I get it.
And so, as the leaves are falling off and they're dying, even though there's death, there's changes of life that can be enjoyed, and there's preparation that happens in that time. So, very interesting. Wow. And then lastly, for winter. So, a lot of people, myself, I don't enjoy winter.
I love winter. I love it.
I don't like to be cold, but what was crazy is before she talked about the winter and the purpose, my thought for winter is I enjoy winter because the cold, there's not as many activities, there's not as much going on in life, and so our family usually slows down in the wintertime. We're cooking more at home, we're chilling out more at home in the evenings, and I enjoy being with my people and slowing down. But she was talking about how in the wintertime, like if it snows, that snow, as it melts off, the ground is able to slowly soak up all that water. And those long soaks are going to help promote that new growth in the spring. And then here's a really cool thing. There's things that are dead in the winter. Mm-hmm. We go out, we clear, like if you have land or your yard and dead limbs are falling and dead things are in your yard, you clear out those dead things in your yard. For some of us, when we're clearing out dead things in the winter, we burn those things. So they're gone, but you're clearing out dead things for new growth to come. So those are the natural seasons. So kicking us off to our life seasons, we'll start with Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says, "For everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing." Whoa.
Wow.
"A time to seek, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to cast away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace."
I'm about to say something to y'all, reveal something. I've read that verse, I can't tell you how many times in my life, and I never heard it was okay for us to have a time to hate. I just heard him say that in the Word. A time to love and a time to hate. Whoa. Anyway, there's so much stuff in that verse. All these seasons, all these emotions come out in these seasons. And here's the thing, in me and her seasons of life, we've not always enjoyed them.
No.
They've not always been fun times.
No.
You know, and I'm not making light. They've not always been springtime, summertime when everything's going great. There's been times that I wish I had never gone through those times. But she was just sharing that about the natural seasons, just like our seasons in our life. When that time in our life comes and that season ends and it's dead, God's preparing us for the next season of life.
So true.
Whoa, I'm just getting a revelation. That is so cool. So don't think when your season ends that it's it. God's preparing you in that preparation to bring your season to life. A new season, fresh, that you've never experienced before. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. When she was explaining the natural seasons, I'm like, God knew exactly what he was doing. Because our seasons of life are no different. They're no different than the seasons that we go through in our life. There's nothing different. Sometimes they're dead, and sometimes they're alive. Sometimes they're growing. Sometimes they're just starting to plant something. It's what happens. It's a process, right? And I know in my life, in our seasons, it's okay to be mad, I think, sometimes. I don't think we give ourselves enough leadway when seasons do happen. I think that bringing up when I was brought up, I'm just saying when I was brought up, everything was okay. You didn't go through bad stuff because it was all right. Oh, how you doing, Grant? I'm doing awesome. Really? You just lost your grandfather. You're doing awesome? When in turn, we need to be okay with not being okay. In our seasons, it's not always going to be fine. Some seasons, can I just be honest, they suck. But we got to be okay with that.
Yep.
We can't say, oh, every season of my life's awesome. You're lying. I'm lying if I say that.
It was funny one time. If people tell you that, they're lying. It was funny one time we were in a couples small group or something, and it was one of our first times sitting down with this certain group of people, and I kept my mouth shut. I know y'all are shocked, but I did keep my mouth shut. Fast forward, I should have just said what I was thinking. But anyway, we sat down and we were talking about what couples argue about or when strife comes, and we were sitting at a table with a couple and they said, oh, we don't fight. And literally the pastor that raised us up, his words came immediately to my mind, because he always said, if anybody ever tells you as a couple that they don't fight, get away from them, because if they'll lie to you about that, they'll lie to you about anything. So anyway, it's kind of funny. But I wanted to say that to say, anybody that tells you that every season of life is hunky-dory and wonderful, they're not being honest, number one, with themselves, and they're not being honest with you. But wherever you find yourself today, whether you're in a season of blessings and beauty and wonder, and it's amazing, or whether you find yourself in a season of drought and you're struggling, here's the cool thing about either situation. It's not going to last forever. The good times, unfortunately, will end, and you'll go through some bad times. But if you're walking through a valley right now, guess what? It's not always going to be a valley. It's going to end. We were sitting on our porch last night. We were talking about staying in this stuff for the long haul. And, I know we have people that listen that maybe aren't involved in like a walk with Christ, and maybe you are. But for us, we were specifically talking about the long haul for the walk with Christ. And we were talking about longevity of it. And I told Grant, I said, this is why it's so important to remember past seasons of your life. Because when you either journal them or just remember them, I'm not a big journaler because I remember most everything. He gets frustrated at me because I remember everything, but it's fine.
Everything.
But I told him, you remember what God's brought you through. And it's important. So maybe not everyone does this, and maybe this is why I remember, because Grant and I will sit and we will talk about, remember the time we made it through this, remember the time we made it through this, and we bring that to the forefront of our minds so that when the next tough season hits, we can be like, you know what, we got this. The prime example, and some of you that have been with us for a while, whenever we had that snowstorm, I don't remember what year it was. We had that bad snowstorm. It wasn't snow. Let's be real. We live in Texas. It was ice. Okay, we had the bad ice storm. We were without power for like 3 days. What was funny about that is we reverted back to a little bitty A-frame house, and we actually did a video about it on here. If you scroll way back through Facebook, and I felt like I used the verse in Philippians. I said, this is what that verse is about. It's not about winning ball games and all that. But anyway, way back when we were out of propane and some broke jokers and didn't have money for propane, we turned on one heater in the house and we hung a blanket up and we heated one room in the house. The kids thought we were camping out and having a good time. So what did we do when the electricity went out in our house that was, nice and looks good on the outside, but it had no electricity? And fun fact, we're all electric.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what we did? We hung up a blanket. We heated one room through a generator with an electric fireplace, and we cooked breakfast every day on a little propane stove. And the funniest part was we had people say, y'all know you can't use propane indoors. Okay, baby. You get out a little bit. Our old house was ran by propane.
Yeah, all propane.
People are funny. But
yeah, it's...
you because you know that God's been faithful in seasons prior, you can hold on to that and know that he'll be faithful in this season. So I don't know what you're going through today. Again, I don't know if it's a great season. I don't know if it's a bad season. But just reflect. If it's a good season, make sure you're thanking God for those blessings. Make sure you're being thankful in those times of goodness. And if it's a bad season, make sure you're reflecting on how faithful that God has been to you in the past. Because that's going to give you the strength and the stamina to make it through this next season. And find a purpose in your season. So who knew that, like for us with the whole propane thing, goodness, y'all, our kids were little. So it's probably been, I'm just going to guesstimate 15 years ago.
At least.
It could be more, could be less. I'm going to guesstimate 15 years. But who knew that in that season of broke jokers and just figuring out a way to live and survive life, fast forward 15 years would have, what we learned in that season, and also what I learned at my grandparents' house, because there was so many people on Thanksgiving and my mama Jenny couldn't fit everything in her fridge. I knew that food would keep on the back porch. She put it on the back porch. So when our refrigerator went out, I put everything on the back porch in a tote. So you never know what you're going to need from season to season, and they could be years apart. But there is a purpose to every season. What are you supposed to be learning? Who are you supposed to be pouring into? Are you supposed to be helping yourself? Are you supposed to be helping someone else? But y'all, I know it's hard to hear sometimes, but God doesn't waste anything. Nothing. Nothing's for waste. Now, am I saying it's always going to feel good? Absolutely not. Now, while I'm talking about things not feeling good, make sure, this is the one point I really wanted to make about seasons. Make sure that you are listening, paying attention, so that you know when your season has passed. Because you can save yourselves a whole lot of heartache. Because we prolonged a season recently that we shouldn't have prolonged. And there was a lot of pain in the prolonging of a season.
True story. Now,
we still learned a lot, but make sure you know when it's time to close a door on a season, if you're able to. Now, we don't always have control over that. Hear me. We don't always have control over that. But, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to go back a little bit. I know I'm going to say something she already said. But in a season, I'll just say this. I had a phone call this week from, I'm not going to mention names, doesn't matter, a dear friend of mine. I call him a friend. He's actually my youth pastor when I was a younger. And I'm not trying to make him feel old. I'm sorry if I did. I wasn't trying to. And I got a phone call from him. And 'cause he knows what's going on. You know, we're going through a rough season right now. And he just wanted to give me.
Hold on. We're not going through a rough season. We're going through a season we've never walked through before.
I mean, yeah, an unknown season. I'm sorry. We're not unknown season. I didn't mean to say rough. It's not. No.
Please.
No. It's a season unknown. Not knowing what the next stage is. That's what I meant to say. Sorry. And so he called me to give me some encouragement, and he caught me. He caught me because when I called him, when he called me, answered the phone, he said, "Hey, Grant, how are you?" And I gave my Grant Martin answer. I said, "I'm doing great. How are you?" And he caught me, and he made me be honest. I said, honestly, I'm not doing good. And I'm very angry. And I'm very frustrated. And I'm very hurt. And he said, that's what I wanted to hear. You need to find people in your life that you can speak and be honest with. When you're going through seasons, you can't tell everybody you're going through a season.
No.
They won't understand it. Right? And so you got to be with people that have actually been through life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, guys, you can't go to people for counsel that have never had. Now, I know I said everybody's been through rough times, but y'all hear me. Some people's rough times are, I wasn't able to buy the car I wanted, or
I had a flat tire today.
Oh yeah, I had a flat tire. Because let's just be real, we all know people that lived a way more privileged life than you did, okay?
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
You've got to find people that have been through the trenches, been through life, and that will speak life into you.
Sorry. And that's what he did. He was speaking life into me. He was telling me things that he already said, you already know this, but there's a reason and a purpose why you're where you're at. And I said, you're right. I believe that. And he said, it's okay to he was telling me it's okay just to, in the season you're at now, it's okay just to relax. Relax. And he was telling me, because when I was younger, when I was going through rough times in my life, he asked, what did I do when I was going through rough times in my life? I said, it was easy. I got on my bicycle, rode to the basketball park, and I played basketball for an hour or two. And he said, why are you doing that now? And I said, I never thought about it. So you know what I did today? I got on my motorcycle, not a bicycle. I went to the nearest park and I played basketball for 1 hour like I did when I was a kid. You know what I did? It was free. It was me and my stereo, my little Bluetooth speaker. What I'm saying is, guys, you need to have people in your life that can speak life into you. In your dead seasons or the seasons you don't know what next stage is, that say it's okay where you're at. God's got something else ready for you.
Yeah.
And you might not know what it is. And it's okay if you don't know what it is. God does. Just chill out and relax and let him reveal it to you. Don't push the issue. Let it come to you naturally. It will. If you've got a call in your life, if you got a call in your life, it will come to you. right? God didn't give you that call just to sit and do nothing. No, He gave you a purpose. He knows what your purpose is. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just want to reiterate that God doesn't waste anything. And there's a purpose and a plan for every season. And like Grant was talking about, this season for us, I believe is rest. It's rest and reset. Because sometimes you can get caught up in busyness, and it's busyness, but it's not effectiveness. Okay, you're not being effective, you're just filling time. And so for us, one of our main priorities in this season, as we're walking through this kind of, it's kind of funny because you would think being together almost a quarter of a century, there's not anything we haven't walked through. And then we find ourselves in this unknown season. We're like, well, we ain't never walked down this path before, but here we go. But here's the deal. What people don't understand about us, and I hope that you guys have this either in a partner or in a friend or somebody, because as long as there's the two of us, we are good to go. We're good to go. And we will walk through whatever season that God calls us to walk through together. But I just want to go back to purpose. Because if you can, instead of looking at, well, why this, why that, why this, why that, and I know I'm getting off on more challenging seasons, but I mean, let's be real. We all kind of know how to enjoy the good seasons, I would hope. Like, it's real easy for me to find fun in the summertime. I go ride my bike, float the river, go camping. If I am outside, I am a happy camper. I love to be outside. So we all know how to enjoy those good seasons. But in the tougher seasons, instead of looking at, well, why this and why this and why that, and God, this person has this and I don't, and blah, 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 just be still and say, okay, God, what's the purpose for this season? What am I? And I promise you, when you shift that, He's going to start downloading stuff. Because it's happened to us in the last little bit. Like, we're writing stuff down. We're like, oh my goodness, this and this and this and this. And when He was talking about people, y'all, I have had people encourage me, and they're praying with me and telling me, you know, great things are coming. I'm excited to see the great things that are coming because God is using this to catapult to something else. You need those people in your life. But just, if you can, and I know for some of us, I mean, y'all, let's be real. 3 years ago, this world went through something we never thought we would see. I mean, let's be real. We never thought we'd live through something like that.
It's true.
For me, it had been since my grandfather was born that we saw something like that in this country and in this world. And so you have to, I know in that time it was probably hard for people to be like, what's the purpose here? Why? But I promise you, God can turn it around for good. I promise. It won't look like it tomorrow. It probably won't look like it next week. It may be years down the road. For instance, when he got a phone call yesterday, that person used something that happened. Good Lord, how long ago that happened?
Oh,
I don't know.
man,
It's been, again, probably, I don't know.
It's been a little bit of years.
15, 16 years ago.
It's been a long time.
But use things he learned in that season to pour into Grant in our season. So that right there shows you there's always a purpose. Now, me personally, and your opinion is your opinion, it's fine. I feel like the things I go through are so that I can help someone else down the road.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Because recently I had a realization, because I used to be kind of like, well, how could you get caught up in something like that? And I don't understand. And, you know, smart people don't get caught up in that. And then recently I went through something. I said, oh my Lanta, I now have empathy when somebody gets caught up in something that maybe they shouldn't have. Because now I'm like, oh, I see the other side of it. And so I immediately started thinking, okay, that's why I learned that lesson. So that when someone comes to me, I now have the ability to be more empathetic and be like, hey, listen, this is not your fault. This was, you know, there was lots of stuff going on behind the scenes and this is not you. when prior to what I walked through, I may not have been as empathetic, and I'd have been like, listen, you should have seen this and you should have known and blah, blah, blah. But what is the purpose? What is God wanting you to learn? We just read through this whole verse that there's a time for everything. So your life is going to have those roller coasters, ups and downs. Enjoy those ups, because those ups are going to help you through those valleys. But more importantly, the valley you're in now and the faithfulness of God you see in that valley now is what you're going to cling to when the next valley comes, whether it be next month, whether it be next year. Because we didn't get through 25 years of marriage, y'all, with just all being on the highs. No, we've had a lot of lows. But when we hit those lows, I'm telling you, we always go back to, remember this season? We walked through this. Remember how God did this. Remember how God did that. And for those of you that are struggling right now, that you're needing something from God, stop trying to tell God how to do it, because I promise you the way he's going to meet you in your season is not going to look like what you have an idea of. Because guess what? He's smarter than us. Didn't you have something you were going to read about?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. I was listening to you talk. It was so good.
Sorry.
I was just listening to you talk. I'm gonna read it all. I wasn't going to. I'm gonna read it all. Okay. It says the realities of life that God puts together. It says the vibrant poetic passage that begins Ecclesiastes 3 looks at what seems to be opposites. Think about it. It uses birth and death, planting and reaping, crying and laughing. And rather than contrasting them, it incorporates them. It says that these are the realities of life that God puts together in his time, not ours. That's the problem sometimes. We want it to always be our way. God invades our experiences, whether that experience is joyful or sorrowful. And it fills it with his presence, infuses it with his grace, and gives it meaning. We prefer the joyful experiences to the sorrowful ones, but the gospel brings them together and says, essentially, that to God, it doesn't make any differences. The time you're in, whether it's birth or death, laughing or weeping, is in God's time. He can bring his presence into each and every experience of life. And with his presence, his peace. So it doesn't matter where you're at. There's purpose in everything. There's purpose in birth, and there's purpose in death.
Yep.
Right? I'll go back to Job. Job in the Bible. When his wife told him you need to curse God and die, he said, hold on, you're talking foolish. Mm-hmm. We have to take the bad with the good. You have to be able to take the rough times that God has with the good. Like she said, when rough times happen, you have good times to lean on. Right? And to be honest, when you're going through good times, understand you're not always going to be on top of the mountain.
No.
Some days you're going to be in the valley. But I think the song, and my mom sings it, and I love the song. I thank God for the mountains, and I thank him for the valleys. I thank him for the storms that he's bringing me through. Because if I'd never had a problem, guess what? I would know that God could solve them. I never know what faith in his word would do. Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. I think my grandpa loved this song. I'm not going to sing it, because I can, but I'm not going to. He always said the song was trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus than to trust and obey. Because trust, it brings strength. You have to have strength. You have to have something to fall on. God, I don't see it now. I don't see where we're going, but I'm trusting you. Yep. Right? And I'm going to obey whatever you tell me, and I'm going to obey it. Yep. That takes a lot. Because sometimes in the season you're at, you don't feel like trusting. You don't feel like obeying. No. You don't feel like praying. Guess what? That's okay. That is okay. I'm telling whoever I'm telling tonight, that is okay. That's been so freeing for me. Raised up in the time where you have to do this. No. Guess what? Sometimes you just got to be quiet. Yep. God, you take over. Mm-hmm. I can't do anything today. That is so freeing, guys. Listen what I'm saying. You don't always have to be driving. Let go of the wheel. He's got it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You got something to say.
No, you're good. I was just going to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. We're good.
Well, I just wanted to say some of you are in a season where you've abandoned things that brought you joy. Go back and grab those things.
Oh, man. It's great.
I recently got an Audible book just for reading pleasure. Not for any other reason. There's a movie coming out in November, so I'm reading the book before I go see the movie, just for reading pleasure. There was a speaker that we had quit listening to, and we picked that back up. And fun fact, his last message was spot on for what we needed. So there we go.
And you know what else I picked back up? This sounds so crazy from a guy that preaches family. I preach it. I've not always been the best at it, but I've picked my family back up.
Yeah.
My son was here today with me. We got to talk. You know how long that's been? I got to sit on my couch and talk to my son. Other night, I came downstairs with my daughter. She was watching Friends. I love Friends. We sat down and talked. I got to take my granddaughter to the park.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah.
Those are things that when I'm old, I'm going to remember. I'm not going to remember punching a time clock.
No.
I'm going to remember those seasons that my granddaughter was here and my son was talking on the couch with me about his life and his family, and my daughter talking about her accomplishments in school that I'm so proud of, and my wife, the sky's the limit for her. I mean, come on. I'm a lucky guy, but I got to embrace that season.
Yeah.
Embrace it. It's not always going to be nice.
And sometimes you forget your priorities, and so God will shove you into a season that says, hey, dummy, that's not what I have for you to be doing.
That's so good. Wow.
And if you're like us, you're a little bit stubborn. And for me, and it was funny, I had somebody pray over me the other day, and I was like, oh, okay, thank you for that. She literally prayed over me, and because I was talking about that, like, God has to yell at me. I'm just going to be honest. He does. He, like, shakes me by the shoulders. You know, I was in a situation the other day, and I was about to make a different decision, and literally God shook me by the shoulders and said, shut your face. No. The answer is no. And I was like, okay, yes, sir. I'm good. I'm good. And so I had a friend pray over me after we were talking about it, and she literally prayed, God, I pray that Tina can start to hear you when you're a whisper. It doesn't have to become you yelling. And I was like, ooh, that's painful. That's a good prayer.
It's a great prayer. It's great.
But some of you have forsaken your priorities, what's important, what God has called you to do, whatever your purpose is. And you really need to reflect on that, because God was going to find a way to get you back to what He's called for you and the purpose He has for you. And hopefully you listen, because I have a grandmother that didn't listen. And God put a healing ministry in her life, and she didn't listen. She never did go back to it. And even to this day, I hear my uncle talk about it sometimes, and you can hear the regret in his voice, even though it has nothing, like, he didn't make that decision for her. But how many lives could have been changed if she'd have said yes? So don't be that person. I
know we got to go. I just need to say something. I don't know who's listening to this needs to hear this. Last night, I listened to a podcast and a message, and I don't care what season you're at, how long you've been in that season. David was in a season for 7 years. Not 7 weeks, not 7 months, 7 years. And you know what he did? The next best thing. He did exactly what God asked him to do in the season he was at. He didn't like it, but he did it. And guess what happened to David? He became the greatest king the Israelites have ever had. Ever had. So wherever you're at today, that's not where you're going to end up. That's not your destiny. No, you're just in a season. Look up. Say, God, I don't like where I'm at right now. Fair. And start walking.
Yep.
Start going. Because you can't move if you sit still and just sit there. You got to move.
Keep stepping.
Keep stepping. Keep hitting that rock.
Yep.
Hitting that rock. That diamond's going to come out.
Eventually.
If you don't quit.
Keep hitting.
If
You're
you don't
going to
quit.
get calluses.
Oh, man. You are.
You may even get bloody blisters on your hands, but you keep swinging that sledgehammer and you keep hitting the rock.
Because the word says joy comes in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
It'll come back to you.
It will. It will.
Man, this has been really good. I like talking about this.
So,
That's really good.
Anyway, but hopefully, whatever season you're in, find purpose in the season. And I promise you, God doesn't waste anything.
No, he doesn't.
All right, guys. We love you. Hey, comment. Let us know if there's a certain topic you want us to talk about. Because you know the two of us, we've always got something to talk about.
Oh, I want to give a shout out. I was going to say his name, a shout out tonight.
Just the first name?
Just first name only. Rudy. My buddy Rudy. My wife said she got to talk to you today. I would love to go have lunch with you. I'm just calling you out right now. I would love to go eat lunch with you one day. When you're free, let me know, my friend. It's been a long time. I'm so glad you got back in here again. And so anyway, hey, I know you're going to listen. And anyway, just want to give you a shout out, buddy. And Oklahoma peeps, I know y'all are out there. Y'all are my people. Get this podcast and listen to it. It's okay. It won't hurt you. It'll be good. I promise. Okay? Anyway,
all right.
That's it.
We've been way over. Well, not
Way
way
over,
over.
I'm sorry.
Not like 6 minutes over. We try to keep it at 30 minutes, but we're sorry. But
Sorry.
y'all, we love you, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.